Hey, record players, Scott here. I am lucky enough to be joined right now on the telephone with a very special guest to talk a little bit of music and a little bit about his career. He is a multiple Juno Award nominee and winner, platinum-selling songwriter, guitarist, and producer. He's the co-founder and guitarist for one of the biggest-selling and most popular Canadian bands over the last 25 years, Finger 11. We're joined by Mr. Rick Jackett. Welcome to the record player, Rick.
Hey, right on. Thanks for having me, man. That sounds pretty impressive.
You sound much better than I'm saying it.
I need you to follow me around and introduce me like that at the grocery store and the bank and stuff. Yeah.
I'll be your theme music when you walk into a room.
They'll be like, really, this guy with the sweatpants? He's the guy. He does all that stuff. All right, that's cool. Nice to meet. Nice to join you here, man.
Thanks a lot. So listen, what does Rick Jackett do during a pandemic? What are you doing during a lockdown? How are you spending your downtime?
Well, to be honest, me and my wife, we packed up shop and moved out of the city and bought a farm. Wow. That's what we've been doing with our lives, which has been awesome. So we used to live right downtown Toronto, which I loved. I lived there for about 10 years. But then the combination of obviously the city being on lockdown and then just the timing in our lives too, just sort of lined up with this perfect chance to switch things up. So I used to live in a little nice house in downtown Toronto. Now I live on a farm and 18
That's got to be
acres.
That's got to be a culture shock.
Yeah, it is. It's good. It's exactly what I was hoping it would be. To be honest with you, it was quite a change, and just the right kind of change. Just sort of, I still don't have internet or nothing out here. I spend most of my days just listening to records and building fires and playing the guitar. So it was nice because in the city, I would never have cut myself off from the internet on purpose, because It's so awesome. But it's nice to sort of take it away from you and just sort of go back to basics. Yeah. So my days, to answer your question, pretty much my days are filled of playing with my kid and playing the guitar. I literally bounce between those two things.
Sounds like a great life to me, man.
Well, it's not right. Everybody's living the Groundhog Day. So my goal is to why don't create a good day to repeat over and over and over again. You know what I mean?
Are you worried that once the lockdown's over and if life ever goes back to normal, which we all hope it does, you're going to miss the city?
No, because I honestly think that once life goes back to, I'm not that far away. I'm like an hour drive, an hour and 10 minutes, But the other thing too is that once life goes back to normal, I know I'll be spending the majority of my, what's called professional career in the city and in cities, Yeah. So this, like I said, this is a little bit to do with the pandemic, but it had more to do with our we were always going to do this, and we just probably weren't going to do it right away, and this sort of happened, and it just sort of fast-forwarded. But, yeah, no, I loved living in the city, but even, to be honest, I just sort of, at that point in my life where I found myself going to bars less and less unless we were playing, So between Blackie, Jackett Jr. and Finger 11, I'm always going to be in the city once a week, twice a week, so I'm not too worried about it, But now I got this place to come back to and crazy privacy. So
I want to start off. I want to go back to sort of the beginning with the band. You guys won a contest, a radio competition. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. We won a 97.7 Hits FM out of St. Catharines. Mm-hmm. They had which actually, if you look at hindsight, it's crazy. The competition was the judges were 7 A&R guys from across the country, which just doesn't really happen anymore. No. So even they weren't it was pretty much a showcase for the whole country worth. So it was amazing. We went in, we were the youngest band by far. We were brand new. We had only written a handful of songs, enough songs to sort of get into the competition. One of those songs was Circles. So it took us there, and then we had a lucky sort of circumstance where we all had to draw out of a hat to see the order of the night, and we drew last. So we got to sort of quote unquote headline the show, even though there was no headliners, but we got to go on the last set when everybody was drunk and all the bands had warmed up the crowd, and we got to go on and be like these, and we were way younger, and we were just a different style of band, and we just were jumping off the walls and going crazy, and the place just sort of went nuts. It was a lot. It felt like a after school special, you know, because we were like still in high school when we win this radio contest, and then two things, like the radio contest wasn't just a radio contest. Like for us, growing up in Burlington, 97.7 was like everything. Yeah. And it was sort of how we discovered the majority of the hard rock music we knew. So winning that radio contest was crazy. And then we went, like I said, we went back to high school the next day. So like imagine that, you know, like we were back in high school and we just won a radio contest and everybody knew it. We were hungover and it was just like, this is crazy. And then we went, because of the way the station was set up, the contest was set up, we had 3 or 4 offers for major label record deals within like 2 days.
Wow.
From never ever being even heard of before that, you know? So it was pretty crazy, man. It was a crazy whirlwind. But that contest was obviously the beginning of the career for our band for sure.
So I was lucky enough at the time to be working at HMV when Letters from Chutney came out. And I'll be honest, what made us open it and play it in the store when we first took it out of the box was the name of the band, obviously, Rainbow Butt Monkees, because we were like, okay, well, we got to hear this. It was absolutely fantastic, and it kind of became like a constant play in the store, and awesome. we absolutely loved it. A few years.
Was it later, on your playlist, or were you breaking the rules?
No, we were kind of breaking.
Did you have
the
like?
rules.
Nice.
Back then, we had record company reps would come in and kind of beg us to buy things that you know, maybe we only would have bought one copy to throw it in the bin.
Right.
And, you know, they do us a favor, we do them a favor. So we had
that's awesome.
kind of at the front of the store, and the more we played it, the more customers asked about it. It was an excellent album. Thank you.
Yeah, it was. We're very proud. I mean, it was weird. It was our very first. It was literally the first 12 songs, or I don't know how many songs are on that record, but whatever. I think it's like 10 or 12 songs. Like that was the first songs we ever wrote as a band. Like we didn't have any other songs, right? Like we were a cover band for like 2.5 years. We said, hey, let's write some originals, and those were the first ones we ever wrote. And for us, you know, it was such a whirlwind because it went on to Much Music, and it actually succeeded way beyond our wildest dreams. And we went from like, wow, we got signed to holy shit, we're on tour, to like, wow, we're playing like across the country within like months of our lives, right? So it was nuts, and we embraced it with all our heart. We loved it. Like it was exactly what we wanted to do with our lives.
It's kind of a whirlwind.
Right that in there. Yeah, I mean, and to be totally frank, I mean, it really didn't stop from then until maybe about 5 years ago, where it's sort of just a bit of a conscious choice for us to slow down and like sort of like regroup. And it literally went for like 3.5 decades, like of just never really being home and just constantly being like doing, you know, just traveling and making music and shooting videos, and it was wild, man. It was cool. And yeah, it all started right there and then with the Butt Monkees. But
so a few years after the Rainbow Butt Monkees, you changed your name to Finger 11. Was that you guys that made that decision, or was it the record company that said maybe we should do this?
No, it was absolutely us. Our record company, our managers, and our agents, they were all pissed about it because from their perspective, they had just dumped a ton of money marketing the Rainbow Butt Monkees. And you had everybody, right? And it worked, and so it succeeded. And all of a sudden, we come to them. Well, so during the end of the Butt Monkee touring, we started running into sort of this kind of weird thing where as many doors as that name kicked open, it also kicked the same amount closed. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because we had a following, but anybody that name just sort of closed a lot of doors for us. Not just with professional like agents and shit, but more like with fans. People were like, they sort of have a preconceived idea in their head of what it was called because the name was so silly, you know? Yeah. And there was sort of this feeling of like, if we're going to keep doing this for the rest of our lives, which we want to, this name is going to get in the way of people actually taking the band serious as we get older, you know. So then, sorry, yeah.
No, sorry, go ahead.
But I was just going to say, but then when we started to write what we were considering the second Butt Monkey record, this music started to show that as well. So all of a sudden the music got way more serious, way heavier, and the jokey side of the band sort of became to the more serious side of the band. And that was also, so we're like, now we're stuck with like a name that doesn't suit the music and a name that none of us like absolutely love and want to die for. So we knew we were going to change the name before we knew what the name was going to be.
Right.
You know, we knew early in making Tip that we weren't going to call this a Rainbow Butt Monkey record, but we didn't tell the label because we wanted to finish the record. You know, we told them they could have dropped us and took the record budget away with them. So we didn't tell anybody. Our managers knew. And we spent, you know, we did what every band does, which was ironic because we had this already awesome name, and we spent like months and months and months, day after day, trying to come up with a new name. But we went through it all until finally we were in the studio, and it was actually a lyric Scott had written for the song Thin Spirits. And that's sort of, it was like your finger 11 points the other way, and it was sort of one of those like, oh shit moments. Like everybody was like, yeah, that's cool, finger 11, that's cool. And then the fact that it came from within the band as well was really, you know, a nice feeling. It was sort of an original thought versus like, you know, taking someone else's book name or character name, you know. So it was cool to have that sort of all encompassed feeling with the name. So that, yeah, I mean, then we told the label, they were like, yeah, I don't know. Then they put the record out for 6 weeks and then they got this. So greatest thing to ever happen to us for sure.
First couple of records, Tip and Greyest of Blue Skies, both go gold in Canada. You find yourself with a huge following, tons of Canadian success. Here at the Record Player, we love the whole 6 degrees of separation thing when it comes to musicians. Those first few albums were produced by Arnold Lanni, who had quite a bit of success in the 80s with bands like Sheriff and then later with Frozen Ghost. When I think of your sound and Finger 11 sound, especially on those first few albums, being as powerful and as hard as it was, makes me wonder, how do a bunch of kids from Burlington get hooked up with the lead singer of Frozen Ghost as a producer?
Right. Well, I would say there was one reason why we even knew who Arnold Lanni was, and that was Our Lady Peace. You know, that first Our Lady Peace record, when it came out, it blew our minds we just fell in love with the record, but then we fell in love with the idea that they were Canadian. It was like, fuck, this is one of the first bands that come along that doesn't sound Canadian, you know? Yeah. It doesn't sound like it's trying to be like everybody else that's from Canada. And obviously that, you know, as being a music fan and a music nerd, that just leads you to who produced it. Then we actually met with Arnold, and we bugged him for a long time. And he sort of, I don't think, really had any real desire at first to work with us because of the Rainbow Butt Monkees. Like, I think he heard that and was like, yeah, I don't want to work with a band like that, right? So we sort of had to say to him, like, you know what, we're trying to transition from whatever that is to whatever we're trying to do, but we're just a bunch of kids and we don't know how to do that, you know? Yeah, so there was that, he sort of mentored us in a lot of ways with the writing and playing and recording, and just really sort of showed us the difference between being like just a bunch of kids throwing down their ideas to like trying to treat the songs like a craft and rewriting and writing and rewriting and seeing how even though you love a part, if you replace it with a better part, that love is even bigger. And he just sort of showed us that like in-depth, you know, sort of style of writing and recording that I think we really learned from, almost maybe to a fault, because we sort of embraced it like it was gospel until later in life when we sort of like had to remind ourselves there's different ways of approaching making records. But yeah, those 2 records, Arnold was instrumental in shaping the band, and it definitely had to do with Our Lady Peace. He blew us away with that first record. So.
The self-titled album comes out in 2003, and One Thing hits the radio, and boom, all of a sudden you're getting traction in the U.S. That song, though, was a bit different from most of the stuff on the first records, obviously. Were you worried that with the success of that song, that would be what people thought or assumed Finger 11 was?
So yes and no. I think just for some context, right then and there in music at the time, the new metal scene had gotten really shitty, right? So from the time we put out the Greatest Blue Skies, there was really not even a new metal scene yet. It was just sort of starting, right to the point where we put out our next record. Our band had sort of been lumped in the new metal scene, and we weren't really into that because we're not really a genre band. We're more like a genre hopping band. Like, we don't really sort of stick to one sound because that's boring to us, and it's just not how we write. Like, we don't have a specific sound in mind when we write. It's more about just what we're feeling. So all of a sudden we were successfully in this genre that we didn't want to get pigeonholed into for the rest of our career.
Right.
And when we made our follow-up record, our self-titled record, there was a conscious choice. Like, we were still heavy, and we were still in a band like Faith No More and those kind of bands, you know, but we didn't want to be like, you know, just those, like, I don't know who. There's just tons of bands that started to sound very similar, you know, and we wanted to still stand out. And so when we were writing that record, that song was a result of Scott and James going away for a weekend, and they came back with a demo of like 5 songs, and every song on it was heavy. And I think only one other song, Stay in Shadow, made it on the record. But that song, One Thing, was sort of stuck as like a afterthought on the demo tape. And to us that weren't there when it was written, it was like, holy shit, this song is awesome. And that sort of took them by surprise. And we were like, and because of that exact reason, like you said, there is this feeling of just doesn't fit in with what we're known for. But that to us is exciting. That feeling of like, ooh, that's a good thing. That's a good thing for us. You know, we've always
and it brought you to a whole new audience, really.
Oh yeah, man. I mean, yeah, absolutely. I mean, we were proud of the song, and so that really sort of is what dictates our decisions. If we like the song, we sort of stand by it. You know, and we all knew like this is a good song. That test of like, hey man, if someone else had written this song and I heard it, I would be very fucking big fan of the song, and I'd be jealous that our band didn't write it. You know, right. We've only had a few of those in our entire lives, and One Thing was definitely the first one, right? And so when that song came along, it definitely, but it was also not like we had 3 singles off that record before One Thing. And it wasn't like we didn't come out guns a-blazing with that song and be like, hey, everybody, check out this song. This is, you know, it was sort of, even as we put that record out, we were hesitant to sort of get there. But obviously once we did it, yeah, it changed everything, man, in the best possible way. No, it really did. I mean,
sorry, man. You guys were lucky enough that you snuck in round about that time before Much Music became a 24-hour like reality show station. You were there for the music video boost, and I think that really helped your career. Did you enjoy the process of making videos, or was that kind of?
Yeah, I actually did. I usually enjoyed the process more than the result. You know what I mean? Right. Like, I actually enjoyed the filming of it, and I always thought to myself as we were making the video, like, fuck, this is going to look awesome. And then I'd see it back and be like, There wasn't many that I was just blown away by, you know? Yeah. Like, it's hard to like yourself on camera anyway, but there's a thing with videos where there's the pitch, and you read it, and you're like, fuck, this is going to be amazing. And then you get the end result after the budget's a reality and time is a reality, and then you go like, oh, that's sort of like what you said it was going to be like. So I enjoyed it. Yeah, exactly, right? But I enjoyed the actual making of the videos. I did. It was always fun. They were long hours, but it was fun to just sort of over the top perform and, you know.
Them Versus You Versus Me was probably my favorite album, and the reason for me anyway is because it seemed to bring back some of the funk from Rainbow Butt Monkees to it.
Yeah.
Was that done intentionally, or was that just sort of a progression?
No, that was like, honestly, I guess pun intended. That's just coming full circle as songwriters. Like, really, honestly, it was like we didn't, like I said, we don't really like me and Scott have had this joke for going on forever about Finger 11 is like, we never know what the next song is going to sound like, ever. Like, we never know what our next song is going to sound like. We never sit down to write a heavy song or write a funky song or write we throw music constantly against the wall and we see what sticks. And
right.
It's not always what's predictable. And sometimes it's like not always what we're looking for either, but that's just our writing process. And when the funk started coming back, I don't think it was a conscious choice, but it definitely felt comfortable, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It definitely felt like familiar territory. So,
Paralyzer, huge in the U.S.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it went top 20, at least in the U.S. on Billboard charts. Probably surprised some people after one thing. How did the success of that song affect you guys in the U.S.? I mean, suddenly you find yourself on TV. I saw some of the clips from Daryl's house, which I thought was fantastic.
Yeah, that was a wild experience, man. I'll tell you about. Yeah, that song honestly just completely, as you may expect, changed our lives entirely. Like, just one thing. Like, I guess the biggest thing was like following up one thing felt impossible to us, you know.
Well, how do you reach that kind of success again?
Well, that was it, and sort of. So we had sort of actually, even though I think he said it out loud, like we sort of had said, "Hey, shit, we made it to at least a one-hit wonder level." You know, that's pretty amazing. Like being a bunch of kids from teenagers from Burlington, who would have ever thought that we could have got to this point, right? And we were pretty cool with it. It was like, holy shit, we have a hit song. This is insane. And then when we started writing for like this, so this is the opposite. Like, remember when I said the Butt Monkees was our first 12 songs? Paralyzer, or Them Versus You Versus Me, we wrote probably about 120 songs for that record, you know?
Jeez.
And they were all like, we really intensely wrote, constantly wrote, we're writing and constantly demoing like 5 days a week. And then one day, this is a crazy story, but one day we were going up to jam because we were sort of on a routine. We promised a buddy of ours, Chris Bowman, that he could come up and take some photos for the session. But for some reason that day, the drive up, it was just a weird, bad vibe. No one was really angry, but it was just blah, blah, blah. We hadn't really done anything good in a while, and we got there and we set up, and there was just no vibe. And we were jamming for about 35 minutes, and we were like, hey, you know what? This sucks. Let's just call it a day and go home and not sort of bang our heads against the wall. And just as we've already packed up our gear, and we see Bowman pull into the driveway, and we're like, oh man, we promised Bowman we'd let him shoot the thing, and we're all packed up. So we're like, okay, Bowman, we're gonna do this for like 15 minutes. We're just gonna set up real quick, and you know there was all this plan to do a big photo shoot. We're like just snap photos of us jamming, and in that 15 minutes is when we wrote Paralyzer.
Wow,
it was crazy. Yeah, it was just like a joke at first. That was sort of the fun of it. It just started this bouncy riff that all of a sudden we just kept jamming, and we kept looking over each other, and we're like, oh, this is pretty cool. And then we added another part, and the next thing you know, we had this arrangement of music, and we almost didn't record it. I think it was our drummer, Rich, at the time, was like, man, we should throw that down before we leave. And we recorded it real quick and sent it to Scott that night, and that night he wrote all the lyrics like in the way that they are now, you know? Mm-hmm. We didn't change. That song didn't, except for the intro, that song didn't change very much at all from the beginning. And then, and then that song went on to become the biggest thing, bigger than our band. You know, this song has eclipsed the band at this point, that's for sure. Like, it's its own entity. Like, when we play a set, if we play a show for a crowd of people that don't really know the band, they'll enjoy the set, they'll cheer for the song, they'll cheer for the band, they'll enjoy this. But as soon as we play Paralyzer, it's like fucking Brad Pitt walked out on stage behind us, you know? it's like a whole different, it's like the song is the celebrity and we're just the vehicles, which I'm totally cool with, you know? But that song has taken on its own world. And now, especially younger generations have totally adopted it into like, it's become like a meme song.
Yeah.
And it's become like this whole other thing on the internet. And yeah, it's wild. And to your other question about the Daryl Hall thing, that song just gave us so many opportunities. And that Daryl Hall thing was one of the coolest we ever experienced, for sure. Going to his place, having that experience was something that I think started to us like a bit of tongue in cheek. Like we were like, really? We're going to go hang out with Daryl Hall? Because at that point, Daryl Hall's house was brand new and it wasn't a well-known thing.
You were one of the first guests on that show, weren't you?
We were in the early, you know, the band Chromeo?
Yeah.
I don't know if you know Chromeo, they're from Montreal, the funk band. They had done it like a couple weeks before us, and we were like, oh, Chromeo did it? Cool, let's go do it. And we honestly just thought it'd be us sitting with Daryl Hall playing like Man-Eater, you know? And then he sent us the sort of, okay, he's like, we're going to do these songs, you're going to do these songs. Or, sorry, he said he sends like 4 Hall & Oates songs, and he's like, these are the ones we're going to do. And then we send him 4 Finger 11 songs, and him and his band learn those songs, you know? Mm-hmm. And as I was learning the Daryl Hall songs, I was like, man, this is awesome. Like, I was always a fan of the hits, but then like they were playing album tracks, and it was cool. So when we got there, it was just a humble experience. Like, these guys are the best musicians I've ever played with, hands down. Like, no question. Like, they're like the Saturday Night Live band, right? Like, they're just unbelievable musicians. And to sit in that room with those guys and do Paralyzer, and like, it was a trip, man. And then my favorite thing of that whole experience was beforehand we agreed on a cover and we agreed on Ain't No Sunshine. And when we did the other songs, we'd do 1 or 2 run-throughs, and then we'd take the last run-through. Where Ain't No Sunshine, the sun was setting, and one of the directors of photography came running in the house and was like, guys, it's a great set out there, but we're watching the sun go down. We literally have like 5 minutes before the sun's down. So we run out with these chairs and we throw them on the ground. We sort of sit down. We never played the song together. And what they caught on tape was like the first and only time we ever played that song together. Wow. And it has this really nice sort of, I don't know, it's just this really cool, that was my favorite thing with that whole experience, was capturing that Ain't No Sunshine moment. It was really special. So.
Well, and the vibe on that song too, because you got Daryl laying back on the chair with the sunglasses on. It was amazing.
It was, and it really was, and it was one of the most organic things I've ever been part of. Like, it was as natural as sitting around a campfire with your friends. Like there was no, we didn't even talk about what key we're gonna do. We just sort of started jamming, and then that was it. You know, I mean, to be fair, Daryl Hall sings. It's gonna sound good. So
true.
You know?
The last couple albums, you guys got involved more in the production side of things, you and James Black.
Yeah.
Was that so that you had more control over the process? Was that just a progression thing where you wanted to do something different? How did that come about?
Yeah, I think that's what it was. I think the record, Life Turns Electric, we were at a point where we felt we know what we're doing, you know. We just sort of felt like we know what kind of record we want to make. We had a lot of engineering experiences from other records, and we just sort of were like, you know what? We know how this should turn out. And when I listen back to that record, I'm like, it's a little more polished than I would have thought I would have made of a record. Like, if it was another band, I don't know if it would have been as polished, but with our band, it turned out pretty good. I mean, that record had some big songs on it. So.
Mm-hmm. As much of a fan as I am of Finger 11, I'm excited to talk about Blackie Jackett Jr.
Nice.
It's a bit of an understatement to say that it's a departure. It's, a bit of a departure from Finger 11 for sure. But I mean, it's fantastic. If you're a country fan, if you're a blues fan, I mean, this stuff is awesome. How did that project come about? How do you guys get involved with Sandra D is fantastic. How does that start?
That started simply as a result of me and James living life on the road and being drunk all, like, you know what I mean? Just like basically Blackie Jackett Jr. is what the back lounge of the bus and the backstage of Finger 11 was like for many years, you know? So it just sort of started as a result of, we were on the road for many years, like years in a row, right? And there was many nights partying in those years. So the back of the bus is where me and James sort of lived. We started sort of jokingly writing songs about a character named Blackie Jackett Jr. You know, we were like, what if we wrote these songs about this guy who's always away on the road, always drunk, doesn't know where he's living, doesn't know, you know. And then we realized, holy shit, these songs are autobiographical. We're writing these songs that we think are about this crazy character, and they're really our own lives, really, you know, with a bit of a twist and exaggeration, right? And also just a love of country music. Like, that's something that I've grown up and I've always just embraced and loved. And that's something that it was just really prevalent in the back of the bus for many years on the road. Tons of Hank Williams and, you know, Townes Van Zandt and just that world, Jerry Jeff Walker, and just, I don't know, tons of just old country, like the 70s country, you know, poetic country, and just that kind of stuff that, you know, we took a lot of influence from those guys that like wrote their lives into their songs versus like the new country where you're sort of writing about a life that you're pretending to live, you know. Mm-hmm. Those guys back in the 70s, they wrote the lives they were living. So that's the cue me and James took, was like, let's write some songs about this life we live. But then with a sense of humor, of course. I don't know, Hank Williams is a big influence, and Hank Williams always used to say, like, you write about yourself, but you try and write it as if it's like a 3-frame funny page comic, you know what I mean? Yeah. It's like, so you can take the saddest part of your life, but you got to make it deliver it like it's a little story that at the end of it, it's funny, you know? And that was sort of a big part of it too. So, and then, so Standard D, that's a crazy thing because me, like I said, me and James started this on the road. So then we recorded a bunch of it in the back of the bus. And when we got home off the tour, we started recording it at our buddy Brewer's house. And the bar we drank at was called Hurricanes. It's in Toronto at Bloor and Dover Court. And we used to go all the time, like every day. And she was the waitress at the bar. Oh, really? And yeah, she was our server. And so we sort of knew her from there, like friendly, you know. And then we were literally sitting around drinking one night, and there was karaoke. And I think it was my wife. She was sitting there, and me and James were like, we got to add someone to this band, like another level, like a girl, like a female singer, you know. And we didn't know anybody. And my wife sort of pointed out, like, check it out, like, look what Sandra's doing. She was singing like Loretta Lynn, you know, and she sounded like the old record. Like, it was like, holy shit, there it is. And so, not really knowing her that well, we sort of said, hey, you want to join our band? Is it really a band? You know what I mean? Like, we didn't have a band. We just sort of had these songs, and we're recording them on a laptop in my buddy's kitchen. And we were like, you want to join us? And she totally did. Instantly became one of the guys, and just instantly great friend and great band member. And then as we moved on, she became more and more a part of the actual band and the songwriting and the whole part of it, you know. And now it's like might as well be called Blackie Jackett Jr. featuring Standard D, you know.
I love it. I think it's fantastic, and I can't wait. One of my reasons for COVID to be over in a hurry is that I would love to see you guys live. I've seen Finger 11, but I would love to see Blackie Jackett Jr.
Oh man, Blackie Jackett Jr. is a trip live. It's great. So another core member of that band is a guy named James Reed, and he's just a phenomenal guitar player. He's a Canadian touring guitar player that's played with everybody. But he's one of our best buds, and he's just oh man, between him and Sandra and then me and James, just the four of us make up this sort of like all four corners of the band, and it sort of creates the sound. So,
all right, I'm gonna finish things off. We're just a couple of rapid fire questions just to finish up. You guys have a bit of a relationship with professional wrestling, I've noticed over the years. Quickly, why? Are you guys just wrestling fans? Who's your favorite wrestler?
I was definitely I grew up a massive wrestling fan, right? But just my age, like in the 80s, I was wrestling Hulk Hogan, like fucking Macho Man, and like I had wrestling posters all over my wall. I still have my 37 wrestling dolls, you know. Like I grew up a wrestling fan. I wore my WWF orange sweatshirt to school, you know. Like I was a big time. And then I sort of followed it into my teens and my 20s, and I just sort of watched it when it was on, and I followed it through all the whole, you know, like when what was it called? ECW came in, and like there was a whole rivalry. Like, I followed it, but then I would say me and James were probably the biggest wrestling fans, but none of us were like fanatics, you know?
Right.
But that opportunity for Kane came up, and that was a really neat opportunity for us, as you know, as like fanboys enough to think, holy shit, how cool would it be to have our song as an intro song? You know, like that still was cool to us and not an unattainable goal. And then when we got to do it for Kane, it would have been a lot harder to write a song for like Triple H, let's say, you know, like because Kane was a monster and he was not a real human character. That was sort of like our attempt. I remember me and James talking about it when we were writing the riff, talking about like let's try and like Darth Vader's theme, like the stomp, like like we were like, fuck, let's try and write like a intro, like a thing that would menacing, you know, riff that would be cool to walk into, you know what I mean? And that was sort of the goal. And then Scott wrote, I mean, he just wrote the wicked lyrics and vocals over that. So yeah, that song is funny, man. Like we loved it. At the time, it got a lukewarm reception. I think WWF wanted to leave it off. They were like, nah, this isn't what we're looking for Kane. And we were like, had this big back and forth, and we thought it had gotten dropped. And one day we were in a bar and we saw it on the TV, and we were like, I guess it didn't get dropped. I guess they're using it. And we got to watch Kane come out to our song. And we were like, oh shit! And so then it really did a lot for us as far as like introducing us to a whole global audience, right? Yeah. Like to this day, right now, if I check my phone, there's guaranteed there's someone, you know, tagging that song, who might not have known who Finger 11 was if it wasn't for Kane and
WWE,
WWF, whatever you call it. So yeah, no, that was a cool opportunity, man. That was, but as far as my favorite wrestler, I think my favorite wrestler was, like it's. I mean, have you seen Beyond the Ring, or like the new series, the TV series on what's it called on Showcase about the wrestlers? Have you seen that?
I haven't seen it yet.
I think it's called Beyond the Ring. So it's crazy. It's like Jericho. He hosts it, and there's a lot of stories about these old school wrestlers that are like pretty sketchy, you know. Yeah. And so after watching the Jimmy Superfly Snuka episode, he isn't necessarily my favorite anymore. But at the time when I was a kid, Jimmy Superfly was pretty awesome. You know, he was unbelievable. I remember just thinking, like, how do humans do that? Like when he would jump off the thing. And now I realize, oh, it was cocaine and you know, like as a kid, you're like, how does he do that? Yeah, it's just a pure diet of drugs and painkillers, and that's exactly what it was. So.
What do you listen to before you get on stage? What is it that hypes you up when you're ready to go?
It changes. Usually pretty heavy or hard rock music. For a long time, Clutch was just the staple on the whole bus. We just put on Clutch super loud. These days, there's a band called King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. I don't know if you've ever heard of that band, but that band is like my whole universe right now. So I don't do much without listening to King Gizzard before I do it. You know what I mean? That band blows my mind on a daily basis. So they're my new favorite thing to listen to get hyped.
Who were your influences musically when you were growing up, or whether guitar-wise or just music-wise?
Yeah, I mean, growing up, I grew up on my parents' record collection, which was a lot of doo-wop and safe sort of 50s and 60s music and cheesy 70s adult contemporary music.
No such thing as cheesy music. That's
No, that's true. That's true. I mean, that is absolutely true. So that being said, I absolutely love Orlando and Dawn and John Denver, and I'm going to get tattoos of them on my body. But I agree with you, though. I agree. I think you like what you like, and there's no apologizing for it. You know? Nope. I think you should only apologize if you're pretending to like something that you don't like. That's just
that's true.
Music's only, you know what I'm saying? And then, so because I grew up on like that stuff, in my teen years is when I discovered on my own. I discovered like rock and roll, like Sabbath And so I discovered rock when I was learning how to play guitar, and it was a constant diet of Black Sabbath, Jimi Hendrix, and Neil Young. And those were the three. I would just go through those three constantly with the guitar in my hand and sort of learning every sort of how they all played differently, you know, and just those were my three major influences, I would say, in my teenage years.
Awesome.
But it's never,
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. No, I was just going to say, but it's never ending. Like, it just keeps going, you know what I mean? Like, there's so many influences. So.
Have you kept anything, like, memorabilia-wise? Do you keep anything from Finger 11's achievements? Do you keep anything from people you've met, people you've worked with, you've toured with some pretty big people.
Yeah. Yeah, I do. I'm that guy in our band that does. I've kept everything. I have bins and bins of different memorabilia and just personal things. Two of my favorite pieces are, I have a note from Melissa Ostermar about an invitation to Finger 11 to Courtney Love's birthday party.
Dude, that and
it's a cool. Yeah, it's a cool little thing, and it should have been thrown out because it was just a scrap piece of paper, but I kept it, right. And it was one of the Somersault tours, and they were having a party for Courtney Love, and he just invited all the bands, but we got a personal note, and I kept it. And then my other favorite thing is, and now it's become crazy. Well, actually, I got two more other favorite things. Anyways, one is when we did Regis and Kelly. Regis was doing this in the monologue skit. They were just telling a story, and he was drawing a map about how he took his grandkids to school or some shit like that. Anyways, after he was done the story, the map sort of looked like a dick pic. Like, he sort of looked like he drew like a dick on this building. And they got like a little giggle, and then they threw it aside, right? He's like, oh, enough of that. And they threw it aside. And I went back and I grabbed it. And after we did our performance, I went to Kelly, and she's actually a fan of the band, and she's been very friendly to us. And when she came in, I was like, could I get you and Regis to sign this? You know? And they did. So I have this like personalized dick pic from Regis Philbin to Finger 11.
That is hilarious.
It's awesome. That is honestly one of my favorite things. Like, I have it in a frame, and it's just like, and then the other favorite thing I got was I got to do a cool interview with Billy Gibbons, a really neat one-on-one. And after it was over, he just enjoyed the interview enough. He was like, here, let me give you my card so we can keep in touch. And Billy Gibbons' business card, all it says is friend of Eric Clapton. And I kept that too. So, I literally have bins of little souvenirs and trinkets that we got over the years. So.
That's awesome. So it's been, 6 years since Five Crooked Lines. Not to get you to spill anything, but what's next? I mean, what do you do when this is over and you're ready to go? What do you do? Are you guys getting together to do some Finger 11 stuff? Are you writing for that, or are you just right into Blackie Jackett Jr.?
No, definitely Finger 11. And you know what? A lot of the writing's been done already. Right before the whole pandemic kicked in, we were on a good tear, and we were writing and demoing quite a few songs. And then we sort of obviously had to stop, and everything got sort of disrupted. But our plan, like last year would have been, we had a lot planned. We have a lot of music to be released. We just, obviously the world stopped, and we just said, okay, screw it, I don't want to. We just sort of stopped being a band for the first time in our entire careers. So we just sort of chilled, but then we kept writing and finishing and working. And now I would say definitely have like 3 or 4, I'm not sure how they're going to get released, if they get released as singles and then we'll put a record out, or if we're going to put a record out together. I'm not sure, but I definitely know that there's new music in the batter's circle for Finger 11. It has to be mastered, and then it's done. And and we're proud of it. We're super stoked. We can only go before we release it, you can only go by on how your family or your managers or people that have heard it react. And so far, I think more solace in strangers, and every stranger we played it for has had a great reaction to it. So I think it's going to be not just another Finger 11 song. I think there's a good one coming. So
Awesome.
That's my prediction.
Well, I can't wait for that. I know your fans can't wait for that. I know a lot of the members of our group are huge Finger 11 fans, so I can't wait to
That's
see
awesome.
it. I want to thank you for joining me today. I totally appreciate you being here at the Record Player. Best of luck going forward. I hope you and your family stay safe. And
thank you. You too.
Really appreciate you joining us today.
Yeah, no problem. I mean, I appreciate the talk. I could talk music all day, any day. You know what I mean?
That's all I do.
Like, I don't even want to get off the phone yet because I want to tell you about how all I've been listening to is Gordon Lightfoot since I've lived on the farm, and it's just been the best experience of my life. I wake up every day, put on, Gordon Lightfoot's double greatest hits, and I just sit by the fire and strum guitar, and it's like, I don't know. Anybody looking to relax right now in life, I would definitely suggest put on some Gordon Lightfoot. It helps.
Buy a farm and put on Gordon Lightfoot.
There you go. Easy. All right.
Awesome.
Okay.
Thanks a lot, Rick. I
awesome.
appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem, man. Good to talk to you. I'll talk to you soon.
Take care.
All right, you too.